Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining us for this safety and security and student conduct session. Hopefully, you're meant to be here. If not, I don't know what to tell you. But we have some fantastic panelists and presenters with us today. I'll be moderating the session. You can go ahead and use the Q&A feature in case you want to ask us any questions throughout the session. We'll also leave a little bit of time at the end to answer any questions as we go through the session. But I'm going to go ahead and if we could just do some quick introductions so you know who you're dealing with this morning. So I'm Nick Golick. I'm the Director for Student Conduct.
I'm Patrice Goldman, Associate General Counsel.
Good morning. I'm Tommy McMasters. I serve as the Chief of Police.
I'm David Harrison, Vice Chancellor for Institutional Integrity and General Counsel.
Good morning. My name is Fulton McSwain. I am the Assistant Director of Gender Violence Prevention and Survivor Advocacy.
Thank you all. So I think we will go ahead and get started with Chief McMasters. I'm going to turn it over to you, and then we'll get this session going. Chief, all yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Nick. Good morning, everyone. As I told the panel, I'll be brief. What I will say is welcome to those that are coming to the illustrious North Carolina School of the Arts. It's a phenomenal facility. I guess curated and housed and maintained by phenomenal staff. Everyone on this panel is excellent. Work hand in hand with each one of them. And the rest of the campus is just as stellar as this panel that's here with us today. What I will say is that we do have a fully duly sworn police department here on the campus of North Carolina School of the Arts. We are accredited agency. We're accredited by CALEA, which is a national standard. Our officers are seasoned officers. We have probably collectively over 200 years of experience in the police department. You know, you got some officers with 25 years, 28 yeyears. So your children and your students are not going to be overseen by people who are brand new, fresh out of rookie school, if you will. These guys are seasoned, they want to be here, and they are here for the mission of the agency, which is to ensure your students are learning in a safe environment. And we have an excellent rapport with our partners, our law enforcement partners around the campus, the Winston-Salem Police Department. We work in conjunction with them on a regular basis. They run programs off of our campus as well, and we work in conjunction when we do different events in and around the campus. The Forsyth County Sheriff's Office is also a great partner. These partnerships are very crucial to us because we are a small agency, but they have resources that we just don't have, but they are at our disposal. In addition to that, Winston-Salem State, which is a sister institution, is less than a mile from us. So of course, they, being in the UNC system, we have a mutual aid with them. So whenever we need assistance from them, they are here and we go there for them as well. And you guys also know Wake Forest University sits inside of Winston-Salem as well. And we also have a rapport with them as well. We meet the first Tuesday of every month. All the chiefs of police meet the first Tuesday of every month. And we talk about what's going on in the city, what's going on people's campuses, what events are going on. We met at the beginning of June. And of course, I let them know that we would have an orientation, summer school will be starting, and we talk about what else is coming up for the year. So I say all that to say that, anyone that's on the campus of UNCSA is in a very safe place. I like to tell people this is the safest place in the city, and I say that, wholeheartedly. We're small, and which gives us the opportunity to be a little bit more vigilant and diligent when we are serving your students. We do everything we can to make your students feel safe and prosper while they're here at UNCSA. We engage with them. We don't do community policing is a word I don't use. I'm firm on saying community engagement. We like to engage with the students. We also engage with our faculty and staff because we want to do this collectively. And we want this to be their safe haven. This is their place of refuge. A place of refuge is somewhere you go where you feel safe. And once you step in these gates, you're safe and your police department is here to serve you. That's essentially what, we have different apps. We have apps. I know students now live by their cell phones and technology. So, we are app-based. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Rave apps. We have every type of app that you can think of to make sure that we can communicate effectively with your students. And we have a 24-hour-a-day call center, so they can call 24 hours a day. There is an officer on this campus 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, fully staffed. And we're always at your beck and call. The leadership of the police department is always available as well. Anytime you communicate with us, you'll see emails. Our cell phone numbers are typically on our emails. Our emails are on our emails. We have phones. We have, we are very tangible because, again, we want you to feel comfortable with leaving your student here at UNCSA and understand that they are, again, in a safe place and, again, in the safest place in the city of Winston-Salem. I'll be glad to answer any questions, Nick, but that's all I got for now.
Thank you so much, Chief. We're going to go ahead and do something about my area, which is student conduct and community standards. But definitely as we go along, feel free to throw those burning questions into the Q&A. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We've got a little interactive presentation here. All right. So a quick overview about student conduct. I just want to make sure that you know where my office is located. It is located in Haynes Student Commons on the first floor inside of Student Affairs. We always have plenty of candy and goodies to give out. So usually I like to joke that if you don't know who I am, that's frequently a good thing. But feel free to stop by and say hello. We're here to help. We can do a lot of different things besides just adjudicate cases on campus. Frequently, we actually put students in touch with other resources that we have. We work very closely with our student of concern team, and that's comprised of folks from academics, from case management, from Title IX, counseling, health services, college life, the whole gamut. So really, if you're struggling with something, come say hello. Usually I'm eating lunch in the cafeteria with folks. Come by and say hello. Don't be shy. And that's also my gavel with a pickle. That's the extent of my designer art skills there. This is how I would describe our student code of conduct. Generally speaking, I would say that it's kind of a pyramid. So at the bottom there, you have your housing and residential and community standards infractions, and we'll go over examples of each of these in the following slides. Then you work your way up to what we call student conduct minor infractions. And then finally, you reach the major leagues. You do not want to be in these major leagues. These are your student conduct majors, and they usually result in a student's dismissal or suspension from the university. We call them separable infractions. Then along this plane, we have our academic integrity infractions, and those range from being minor to major. They could result in something as simple as you having to redo an assignment, or they could result in you no longer being able to participate in this campus community. So what am I talking about when I talk about academic integrity? Here are just some examples of some separable violations. So for instance, a second instance of a non-separable violation. So if you are a frequent flyer and you have been caught cheating multiple times, for instance, that could be something that we could look into suspension or expulsion for. Having a substitute take an examination on your behalf, intentionally destroying or obstructing another student's work. I know we're very competitive on this campus, but let's try to keep the black swan stuff to a minimum. Organizing or facilitating a collective act of plagiarism or cheating, violating research or professional ethics, and any violation involving potential criminal activity. During COVID time, I like to joke that we had some Ocean's 11 level heists. I think that students tried to pull off. It did not work out for them. So I encourage you to really not take advantage or try to take advantage of your professors. They are professors after all. They are much smarter than you think. Some non-separable violations. These would be your other first-time violations of the academic integrity policy. So, for instance, perhaps improper citation, cheating, using AI, artificial intelligence, and not properly citing that as work, or perhaps citing it as your own. Those would be some examples of non-sepral violations, and those are something that the faculty and the professors deal with on a case-by-case basis. Some housing policy infraction examples. These would include having an unapproved animal. So we do have ESA policy as well as a service animal policy. Obviously, service animals are permitted on campus, as are emotional support animals. The difference is that emotional support animals need to be approved by our Office of Learning Resources first. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. Failing room inspections, we do health and safety inspections about twice a semester, I would say, also during closing periods. So when the university closes for winter break or summer break, that's when we would do a walkthrough and make sure that the room is in good condition. Excessive lockouts. So if you get locked out 3 or more times, you may have a meeting with our assistant director for occupancy management. Any fire safety violations, so covering smoke detectors, trying to have cooking appliances that are not permitted, space heaters. Basically, my rule of thumb is that if I touch it and it can burn me, it's probably not going to be permitted in the residence hall. Any displays of alcohol paraphernalia are not permitted, especially for students who are under 21 years of age. So any kind of wine bottles, whether they're empty or not, beer cans, even beer posters, those kind of things would not be permitted in any student's room, especially if they're under 21. Our tapestry policy, as I like to call it, or as our students like to call it at this point, a student can't cover more than 10% of the wall in their residence hall room. So if that happens, then we may ask the student to just take some things down, and that's purely a fire safety policy. Any damages caused to the room would be an infraction of our housing policy, as well as any room changes that are not granted by the housing office or residential education. And some of the sanctions that might come out of this, obviously, will give students a chance to correct the violation. If there's damages, restitution may be involved. Students may be placed on housing probation. They may be asked to relocate. We can suspend students from housing, and that can be very detrimental. So again, I encourage students to follow our housing policies. And then we also have a lot of educational conversations, as well as campus service hours. Residential and community standards infractions are along that same kind of playing field. You'll see that a lot of the outcomes are very similar, but some examples of violations of those would be a violation of our quiet hours, sign out procedures. Those apply to the high school. We don't have curfew or sign out procedures for college students, guests. Intervisitation, I want to go over really quickly. So our intervisitation policy refers to, when we talk about college students, it's that college students cannot be in a high school residential building. And similarly, high school students are not allowed to be in a college residential building. So although you may share some classes with high school students, they are not permitted to visit each other's areas under any circumstance. Our guest policy, I also want to go over. You are not allowed to have a guest over for more than 3 consecutive nights. So if you're having someone visit, they shouldn't be in your room for more than 3 nights in a row. And I believe it's 5 or 6 nights in a calendar month that they're not permitted to be in the room. And all guests who are staying overnight, all the roommates have to agree to have that guest over. So everyone has to be on board with that. And then any unauthorized entry or use, if you are lending out your keys or your one card, that is going to be a violation. We take security very seriously on this campus. So you'll hear more about this during the presentation when one card gets a chance to present. These are code of conduct minor infractions. These are more serious still. So accumulating any housing or residential infractions will result in a minor violation. Any low-level alcohol or other drug policy infractions would result in a violation as well. I will say that being in the presence of alcohol and other drugs is also against our policy. So typically we say that if you reasonably know that you are in a space where you should not be in, where there's conduct happening that you know is not permitted, we expect you to remove yourself from that situation. Our smoking policy on campus dictates that you are not permitted to smoke within 50 feet of any building on campus. So for instance, if you were smoking in the room or vaping, everything applies to the smoking policy. Then you would be found in violation of that. Any theft and dishonesty infractions, failing to comply, any acts of harm such as bullying and retaliation. I will say this about bullying. I'll quote our general counsel in that just be a good person. Bullying, we do define bullying. We have a definition on our website. Generally speaking, a single instance of what you might consider bullying is generally not going to trigger our acts of harm policy. Usually what will trigger that is something that's pervasive or ongoing. So we will work with students just because something maybe just happened once and made you feel uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that I can't get involved. It just means that perhaps it might not necessarily be something that I can formally charge a student with. So I just want to clarify that. But we can still have conversations with students and we can still help. So I always encourage folks, come to me if somebody is making me feel uncomfortable. Possession of a weapon, you'll see, is under both our minor and major student code of conduct infractions. Pocket knives with folding blades shorter than 4 inches are allowed so long as they're used as a tool. So sometimes you'll need to use them, especially in design and production, maybe filmmaking. But the moment that they're brandished or used in any other manner, you could be in violation of a state law, and you could be charged not just with code of conduct infraction, but with a police infraction as well. Violating the student self-reporting of criminal charges policy. So if you are charged with some sort of violation off campus, we expect you to self-report that to us. We will eventually find out. Usually police departments will let us know that one of our students did something that they weren't supposed to, and doesn't have to be in state. I've gotten reports from a lot of out-of-state jurisdiction as well. So again, if you find yourself, you were charged with something, just let us know. And that way, I'd rather hear it from you than finding out from someone else. Some outcomes, verbal warnings, written warnings. Students may be placed on probation, and that typically prevents you from some of our minors in academics. So if you were trying to pursue an entrepreneur minor, you may be unable to do that. If you're on probation, you'd also be unable to run for student government. So generally speaking, you want to avoid probation. Restitution may also be appropriate. So loss of privileges, behavioral contracts, educational outcomes. We have, through our counseling center, we have substance use assessments. So if you're charged with an alcohol or other drug policy infraction, we may refer you there. Depending on the severity of it, we also may refer you to our wellness coordinator for what we call wellness meetings. And then we also have restorative justice on campus as well. And that's generally just trying to repair the harm that's been caused to campus. So you see that applied a lot in terms of bullying and theft. We find those very powerful when students participate. And then finally, we have our code of conduct major infractions. These are more severe alcohol and other drug violations, misusing prescriptions, anything that falls under our Title IX policy. So any sexual assault or harassment is going to fall under a code of conduct major. Possession of a weapon. So again, possessing a pocket knife is going to be treated very different than if you brought a firearm to campus, for instance, or a bazooka or a grenade. But that would be something that you would definitely face a code of conduct major for. Any violent or threatening behavior. including hazing. I encourage students to report that to me. We don't tolerate it here. It's, students have across the country, died from hazing. We want to avoid tragedy like that on our campus. When we say we're fighting pickles, I say, that's in spirit, not don't actually start throwing hands with people. So any violence, there's just a zero tolerance for. Any engaging in conduct that puts the safety of the campus in jeopardy could also be a major, and then accumulating multiple minors would result in a major as well. And for these, we're talking about separable outcomes such as suspension, dismissal, but we still put educational outcomes in place so that once perhaps your suspension is over and you want to return to the community, you would have to fulfill those educational outcomes before you were able to do so. I will talk about our free speech policy really quick. We generally saying we won't restrict what you say, but we will restrict how loudly you say it. We have a green speech code rating from FIRE, so those folks we've worked with to make sure that, especially in an election year, there's going to be a lot of debates on campus. It's coming up in the next couple of months. So I do want students to exercise their freedom of speech. That's perfectly fine. But I also want to make sure that we do it in a way that doesn't disrupt the educational opportunities of other students on campus, and that things happen generally without folks harassing other folks. We're all here to learn, but there's obviously a lot of stuff going on in the world, and we want to make sure that students have the right to participate in those mechanisms. We run voter registration drives as well. And we want students to participate for sure, but we want to also make sure that everybody's right to an education remains unimpinged. The final thing I'll say about discrimination/harassment versus free speech, just because something that you hear someone say might be unwelcome to you, it doesn't necessarily make it discrimination or harassment. Now, if you think it might, come talk to me. I'll be happy to take a report and we can talk about whether or not it does, and we can take action if that is the case. But I do want to just be clear that there is a freedom of speech. We do have First Amendment rights, but I want to make sure that we do exercise those rights in a manner that is respectful to our entire campus community. Finally, we do have an amnesty policy. This generally applies to students who or their friends who seek help on behalf of others. The last thing we want to see on campus is a campus tragedy. So I always encourage students to be active bystanders and to make that call to let us know. We'll go and help the student out. Generally speaking, amnesty is great because you avoid all of the status outcomes. You might avoid probation. You might avoid suspension, even potentially, depending on again, it's a case-by-case basis. But generally speaking, I really encourage students to make that call, get their friend help, or get themselves help. If they know something that is not right, be that active bystander and make that call. And then finally, how do you make a report? Very easy, uncsa.edu/incident report. It can be anonymous. I generally encourage students and community partners to go ahead and give me your name so that I can follow up with you if I need any further details. And if you want to retract it from the report down the road, we can. But it's more than just student conduct. If you know of a friend who's going through a mental health issue, if they're not doing so well, maybe they said something that's extremely concerning to you, let us know. We're going to reach out to them. One of us will, and we'll make sure that person is okay. Never be afraid to tell us something about someone, because you could be that person who makes a big difference in their life. So that's my contact information up there. I'm going to go ahead now and turn it over to Patrice to talk about Title IX. Patrice, all yours.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Again, my name is Patrice Goldman. I am Associate General Counsel. I'm here this morning filling in for Miss Valerie Thielen, who is our Title IX coordinator. If you were here for introductions, you also saw that Mr. David Harrison is here. He is our General Counsel, and we all represent the Division of Institutional Integrity here at UNCSA. So for today's presentation, I will just be speaking very briefly, giving a brief overview of our Title IX office, as well as some of our related resources on campus. This will not be your last time hearing about these resources. Here at UNCSA, we take allegations of sexual assault, sexual misconduct, very seriously. If you were here for yesterday's presentation on Title IX, all of those things, Miss Valerie Thielen, all of that is housed in the Title IX department. Also, by nature of the fact that we are speaking about high school students, most staff and personnel on campus that you will come in contact with are what we call mandatory reporters, which means by law, if there are allegations or even serious claims of sexual assault or sexual misconduct, by law, those are required to be reported a certain way. So again, this will not be your last time hearing about these resources. So if you have any questions following this presentation, Miss Valerie Thielen will be your point of contact. All right, so here at UNCSA, kindness matters. People on campus will be different from you. Everyone is different. And we encourage everyone to embrace those differences and to learn from one another. If you don't know how to help someone on campus, if you think they need help, we encourage you all to reach out to a staff member or a faculty member or to Ms. Valerie Thielen. There's lots of folks on campus that are here and are able to help you figure out different ways to help people when you feel like they are in need. Generally, the Title IX office is a campus resource that's available to all students to help if someone is experiencing harassment or discrimination based on sex or gender. Valerie Thielen works with students with issues ranging from verbal harassment to victims of sexual violence. Everyone has different needs, so the response to each student will be based on those needs. I think that Fulton is on this call as well, on this presentation as well, and he will be able to speak more about the confidential resources that we have on campus. But I think this last point is very important. Regardless of what your needs are, the Title IX office is here to help and here to be a resource. And so again, I know I keep saying this won't be your last time hearing about the Title IX office, but I'm saying it because it is true. The resource is here for everyone. Even if you aren't sure whether, the Title IX office is the appropriate place for whatever your concern is, you can always start there and be redirected if necessary. The Title IX office also offers other support services and accommodations, or can direct you to other support services and accommodations on campus. We can assist with academics, housing. We can issue no contact directives. So these are issued as protective measures put in place for students. Say there's some sort of conflict on campus and it's determined that those two students simply just don't need to be in contact with one another, either, again, as a protective measure or until an investigation takes place. The Title IX office can assist with issuing those safety planning as well as connecting to other services on campus and throughout the community. So here are some examples of prohibited conduct that are covered by UNCSA policy. The first one is sexual misconduct, harassment or discrimination based on sex, sexual assault, sexual violence or exploitation, relationship violence, and stalking. There are others that are housed under our policies, but these are the main ones that typically people come forward to the Title IX office with. And you can find those definitions in our policies, and I'm sure they'll be distributed in the materials as well after these presentations. All faculty and staff at UNCSA are required to report harassment or discrimination to the Division of Institutional Integrity via the Title IX office. All faculty and staff are responsible for reporting incidents of sexual discrimination, harassment, or misconduct to the Chief Compliance Officer or someone else in the Division of Institutional Integrity. Again, most of the time that person is going to be Ms. Valerie Thielen. There are folks on campus who do not necessarily have to report. Those are those confidential resources that I just referred to, counseling service, the Student Health Center, the ombuds person on campus. And again, I think Fulton may speak to some of these later on in the presentation. I will say that the rules for some of these are a little bit different for high school students than they are for our college and university students. And that is just based on the nature of the fact that high school students are minors and some of the laws are a little bit different. So here are some directions on how to report should you need to avail yourself of the resources that the Title IX office offers. We have an online reporting form. You can contact Ms. Valerie Thielen directly by email or phone. And this bottom bullet just says, if you aren't sure what to do, that is okay. She's there to help you go through the options that are available to you. And students we help students make informed decisions on what is best for them based on the information that we have. And again, all of these links and this information will be made available to you. So on our main website, we do have a Title IX reporting page, and the page looks like this. The header just basically says how to make a report and what happens next. We understand that there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, a lot of just kind of fear of the unknown that exists when you need to make a Title IX report or when you think you need to make a Title IX report. This page houses a lot of the information. It'll walk you through exactly how to report an incident. You can do it anonymously or identifying who you are. Again, once it goes through the process, there may be a point where you have to identify yourself, but generally the reporting page, this is what it looks like. All of your options are here. And then there's information about what will happen once this report goes through to Valerie. And then this is like a FAQ, I guess, page for the sexual harassment and misconduct reporting form, again, also housed under the Title IX office. One thing I will say here in red, you'll see where it says, if you are experiencing an emergency, if there's an imminent risk to your well-being or that of another person, contact the UNCSA Police Emergency Line or dial 911. And this is very important. A lot of times, we discourage people from putting information here that lends itself to an emergency. If you are in an emergency situation, or if you think that another person is in an emergency situation, you want to go ahead and call the UNCSA Police Department. They will be able to guide you through whatever the emergency is at that time, and this reporting form will always be here. But these FAQs or Q&As are very helpful for instances where you find yourself maybe wanting to use this form but not really sure about if it's appropriate to use it or what's going to happen next. So someone from the Title IX office, once they get this reporting form, they will send the person who is reported as the one experiencing the harm. They'll ask to meet with them, and they'll also send a list of contact information with resources. Those resources can vary, again, from resources on campus like case management or the counseling center to other resources within the city of Winston-Salem, outside in the community that we partner with to provide support services for students. When you meet with someone from the Title IX office, they will gather information from you and explain what next steps are available. Sometimes you will have the option to file a formal complaint, and that's just based on the nature of whatever the incident is. You may not have the option, but other options include informal resolutions or educational interventions. Sometimes you may not know what you want, and so until you are ready, the focus will just be on what you need to get back on track. And those, again, are those support services that we offer students so that students are able to remain successful as best they can in the academic environment, notwithstanding whatever else they're experiencing on this front. So steps for filing a formal complaint. Title IX coordinator receives the report, requests to meet with the student. They're asked to submit a written statement of allegations if they request to file a complaint. Investigator gets assigned to the case, and each person involved in the case may be offered an advisor. The investigator takes an interview. Both parties or all parties involved get an opportunity to be interviewed. Investigators collect and interview information, any witness evidence or witness statements, excuse me, and other evidence. The investigator will write an investigative report. Each person gets an opportunity to review that report. Title IX coordinator reviews the report, and in some instances, the case proceeds to the Office of Student Conduct. Again, I know this is a very quick and kind of dirty overview of the process, but there will be multiple opportunities for you to hear about this information and multiple places where you can go on campus to get this information. One of the biggest things that we want to stress is that you are not alone. If you or someone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, harassment, or discrimination, there are definitely resources to help. It is important to report in order to get connected to those support services as soon as possible. The Title IX office does not publicly identify victims or alleged victims or cases. This process is designed to maintain the privacy of those involved. As a victim, you get to decide what the next steps are. The process is designed to put you back in control of your life and how you want to move forward. Resources for survivors are also housed on the Safe at UNCSA Campus Hub. This is kind of like a blurb of what the web page looks like. It's information on resources for students who are experiencing any type of harassment, discrimination, sexual misconduct, or for students who aren't sure yet exactly what they need. There are also resources for faculty, staff, friends, family, and others who are seeking help for themselves or for someone else. So Valerie's information is listed here. Don't feel obligated to try to jot this down really, really quickly. Again, we will make sure that all of this information is distributed in the materials after this presentation. So thank you for your time, and I will turn it back to Nick.
Thank you so much, Patrice. And that reporting form is really great. It really explains the process and walks you through it step by step. We hope something like this never happens to any student on campus, but if it does, we're here 100% of the way. Fulton, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Hello, everyone. And once again, my name is Fulton McSwain, and I would like to welcome you to the UNCSA family. I've been here since this past November. In a short time, I can honestly say this is a wonderful, tight-knit community. So we're looking forward to you all being a part of this family. Right now, I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see. All right, so once again, I am the Assistant Director of Gender Violence Prevention and Survivor Advocacy. I work closely with all the people who are on this presentation as well as others. Before I get into my exact role here at this university, I think it's important to understand what gender-based violence is. In essence, gender-based violence refers to violence directed against a person because of that person's gender. It can consist of sexual misconduct or sexual assault, which refers to any unwanted sexual activity that occurs without the consent of the other person. So this can include things such as non-consensual touching, groping, or any coerced sexual acts performed on someone who is unable to give consent. Sexual harassment involves unwelcome sexual advances or other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature that creates a hostile, intimidating environment. So this can range from inappropriate comments to gestures. Dating violence, also referred to as relationship violence or intimate partner violence. It encompasses physical, emotional abuse also sexual abuse between intimate partners. Relationship violence or dating violence occurs when one partner exerts power and control over the other person. Stalking is also a category under gender-based violence. Stalking is a pattern of unwanted or obsessive attention by an individual toward another person, causing fear or concern for their safety. It can involve repeated or unwanted contacts, threats, or other behaviors that invade that person's privacy or their sense of security. And also a fifth category, especially in today's time, we definitely want to include online violence. It's kind of an umbrella term, but it refers to any kind of gender-based violence or discrimination that takes place in online spaces. When you think of things such as revenge pornography or harassment, it can fall under that particular category. So this is what gender-based violence is. As for my role on campus, my hope is that no one will ever experience any form of gender-based violence. However, if you are impacted either before or during your time here at UNCSA, please know that I'm here to provide confidential, trauma-informed advocacy and support. As Patrice stated, I am a confidential resource, which means that students are able to come to me, college students that are able to come to me without making an official report to campus. There are limitations with confidentiality, which I'm not going to get into right here, but when I meet with a student, I make sure I outline the limits of confidentiality. My goal is kind of twofold. I provide different services for survivors. My mission, my role here is to ensure that all survivors feel safe, that they feel heard, and they feel empowered. And more than anything, they don't have to navigate their experiences alone. So again, I'm able to assist with different referrals and resources, not only on campus, but also within the community. I'm here to provide emotional support and safety services. So that may involve safety planning as well. And just assisting with navigating the university and also the legal system as well. The other part of my role is to collaborate with students, staff, and faculty around prevention efforts of gender-based violence. So I'm going to get into some of this in my next couple of slides. Education and training is an important aspect of what I offer. I do awareness events and campaigns, and then I'm going to speak a little bit about the safety team as well. So this is a brief overview of what education and awareness looks like. I'm able to provide workshops and trainings to students as well as staff and faculty on things such as bystander intervention. One thing that we want to make sure students are aware of and understand the importance of is if you see something, if you know something, it's important to intervene. And there's different methods to intervene when you are aware or witness some form of gender-based violence. So I speak to that in my workshops. I also talk about consent. Sometimes consent can come across as a gray area. So my role or my job is to really speak to students and have conversations about what consent really means. In the past, I've also done workshops and trainings around myths and misconceptions related to sexual assault. at this age, a lot of students are in relationships. So we talk about the dynamics of what a healthy relationship is. And we also engage the students around awareness events and activities. Some of the months that we have, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So we want to make sure the students are aware of not only the activities or the months, but I try to have different activities going on as well. So some of you may be asking, why is gender violence prevention so important on a college campus? For one, it ensures the safety and well-being of our students. It's important that we create a safe environment where everyone can focus on either their academic growth or their growth personally or their growth artistically without fear of being harmed. Student success is another reason why gender violence prevention is important. Students who feel safe and who feel supported are more likely to succeed both academically and artistically. And third, it promotes by focusing or by having gender-based violence prevention a part of our campus community. It promotes a campus culture of respect, equality, and inclusion. So this builds a stronger, more supportive campus community where everyone, students, staff, and faculty, are able to thrive. I talked about the SAFE team earlier. This is something that when I first arrived here, I envisioned students coming together and being at the forefront of raising awareness and creating a campus, a safe campus environment for everyone. So this is something that I started towards the end of last semester with my supervisor coming up with the name as well as the logo. And I would love students, even new students to this campus, to be a part of this team. Again, this is something where students are leading the efforts to promote gender violence awareness and to raise awareness. So if you're interested, please let me know. I'm looking for strong students to be a part of this team. We call it the SAFE team, and we'll have different activities throughout the year. I want to make sure that you all have my contact information. Once again, my name is Fulton McSwain. Here's my information. My office is located in what we call the Hub, which is in Haynes Student Commons, is in office 334, and it's right across from the Pickle Jar. Please, whether you're a survivor or not, please come by. Again, I'm looking for strong students to be a part of the SAFE team. And once again, I welcome you to UNCSA. With that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Nick. Stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Fulton. I appreciate it. And thank you to all our panelists here today. We had a couple of questions that I ended up answering in the chat, but we'll be happy to take some more questions once Fulton stops sharing his screen over here, and we can answer more. There's one that says, how likely is it that I'll have classes with high schoolers? That depends on really what art you're in. I'm not going to really be able to answer that as well as someone in academics. So you may have some classes with high schoolers, but typically they're related to the art only. I guess we did a really great job, everyone. I don't see too many other questions coming in. There was a question. We'll be talking about car service and transportation more at a different session. I believe Aaron's typing an answer already, but we'll actually be getting to that, and that'll be a great question for our transportation folks. Can we elaborate on what cooking implements are allowed in the residence halls? Yes. So depending on where a student is living, there's going to be different sort of appliances that they're permitted to have. So, for instance, if you're living in Artist Village, which will be 99% of the incoming students, the only electrical appliances that are permitted are generally coffee makers, microwaves, small micro fridges, any laundry irons. Those are fine too. But otherwise, anything else generally is not going to be allowed. Now, if you're in the apartments, you can have toasters, toaster ovens, instant pots, George Foreman type grills, because those have kitchens. And those are going to be treated a little bit differently from a fire safety standpoint. Electric kettles are permitted. We will classify those same as a coffee maker. So definitely. You're welcome. There was a question about what should I do if my roommate gets sick? Not sure. If you want to elaborate, maybe you can. Generally, we don't quarantine students unless there's a pandemic going on. That would be a great question for health services, maybe. But there's another question: are combination microwaves allowed? The kinds out of different settings, as long as it's a UL or Energy Star approved appliance, it's probably going to be okay. I will say that Artist Village, we do include a micro fridge in every room, so that's a microwave and a fairly large mini fridge that has a freezer in it. So you definitely don't want to bring too many appliances if you're coming. In fact, in Artist Village, I believe we only permit one additional mini fridge per apartment. So definitely talk about it with your roommates once you get your housing assignments in July. All right, we'll give it another 30 seconds if anyone wants to type a question in. Otherwise, we'll finish a minute or two early. But I want to make sure that we give folks an opportunity to ask us any questions in our illustrious panel here. What do you recommend we use to hang things in our room with? We don't recommend anything. So that's a great question that you could ask during the housing presentation. Generally speaking, I don't recommend you hang anything. The command strips will tear the paint. A push pin's better than a command strip, and you might be able to get away with that, but that's going to leave a hole in the wall too. So I don't have a good recommendation for you. The amnesty policy, if you search for amnesty policy on our website, you'll be able to see it. Generally speaking, it's for students who are trying to seek help for others. It doesn't apply to every case. For instance, if you come to me and you say, "Hey, been dealing drugs on campus, want to come clean," I'll say, "Well, that's great. Thank you for doing that. You're still going to go through the conduct process." So there is a cutoff at how major a case you can have. It's really intended to preserve the health on campus and make sure that we don't have any campus tragedies and we get students help they need. Last thing I want to see is somebody breaking a leg because they fall down some stairs or they're too messed up to walk home and walk in front of a moving vehicle or something like that. We don't permit wallpaper, so please don't bring wallpaper to campus. Can you use a clothing steamer in your room? Use it at your own risk. You may set off the fire alarm if you do. I generally say that you will probably want to do that and close the door in the shower part of the room or the restroom. You definitely don't want to do that necessarily in your bedroom because you have a great chance of setting off one of the fire or smoke detectors. So please don't cover those. That's going to result in an automatic fire safety fine. Do I prefer Uber delivery for groceries? No, I prefer going to shop myself. If you're a student, I'm just kidding. If you're a student, some students do Instacart, some do Uber, for grocery deliveries. So yes, those are services I know that students do use on campus, but we have grocery shuttles as well, and we'll cover that during the transportation part of the orientation. Great questions. Great questions. I've been here too long. I'm able to answer all of these. I've been here for 8 years. So campus, you can enter any time of night. We are open 24/7. Now, certain parts of the campus do close certain entrances. So after a certain time of night, there's only one entrance to campus that is open. So that's obviously for security reasons, but yes, you can access the campus 24/7. The only time you can't access campus is during winter break potentially. You may have difficulty there, but otherwise we're always open. And students living in apartments have access to their apartment also during breaks. We do close Artist Village for spring break and winter break and summers. If you have a question about the painting policy, again, ask our housing folks or email us at resed@uncsa.edu. It's an internal policy. We do have a painting policy, but generally they're just they're not just any color. I call it different shades of beige. So it's not really that great a policy. But feel free to send us an email, and I'm sure someone from residential education will get back to you. All right, we've got 1 more minute. Chief, if you're still here, this one's for you. Can one ask for an escort during the night if they feel unsafe walking around campus? And if so, how do they do that?
Sure, absolutely, Nick. They can call our communication line, which our numbers are readily available everywhere on the internet. I'll give it to you here at 336-770-3321, which is communications. All they have to do is reach out and say they want an escort. We will send an officer over right away. Fortunately for them, our campus is small. It's if I'm not mistaken, 77 acres total. That's not even a mile in square, 1 square mile around. So we can get to these. Our response time is typically within about 3 minutes max. So it's not an issue. We welcome those escorts. Trust me, the guys welcome those escorts anytime.
Chief, does that service apply to anywhere off campus too, or just on campus?
No, that's primarily on campus. Like when you want to go, when I say off campus, do we have a couple of buildings that are off campus? I mean, when I say a football field away off campus, if they're a street over on Sunnyside, that's not an issue. Now we don't run people to the mall and to get their hair done into the movies, those types of things. But we will respond to any situation that one of our students is in with the city police department or the sheriff's office. If they call and say they're in something and dealing with a police officer or one of our law enforcement partners off campus, and we will respond to that. If they got into an issue at Walmart, while they were shopping, we will respond to that, because we will respond to make sure that they are treated properly and treated fairly. And in addition to that, we do have mutual aid with these agencies, and we get there and that agency may say, hey, look, this is your student. You guys want to take care of this, and we'll step in and do that.
And Chief, could you just repeat that number one more time? Is that just the main dispatch line?
Absolutely. And it's 336-770-3321. And that is the main dispatch line. Somebody's on that phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
All right, we are at time. I'll answer these last questions very quickly. Can you live in the res halls during the winter or summer? No. If you're in an apartment, yes, but otherwise Artist Village does close for winter break, spring break, and summer break. And again, we don't really close. Our buildings will close, but we don't really close at night. The campus is accessible depending on what's going on around campus. So again, it just kind of varies. But I thank everyone. We are at time. I thank everyone for joining us here today. And I look forward to seeing you all in the fall. And thank you to all our presenters and panelists as well. Take care.